young ones. You are loved by Jehovah and his organization. As evidence of Jehovah's love, some may immediately think of the animated series of videos entitled Become Jehovah's Friend, featuring Caleb and Sophia. And that has indeed been evidence of Jehovah's and the governing body's love for little children.
How you doing, guys? Back when I was in junior high school, I had a good friend that got me into weightlifting. This kid had muscles where you didn't know any existed. And we would spend hours working out. It got to the point where we would not leave the house until we had pumped some iron. He let me in on a little secret, and he had brought me to a karate school that he was hanging out at for some time. Now, this was something that none of us even knew. This was an old school. It was an old dojo right off the ocean. It was not the richest school, but it was run by a legitimate badass. He had spent 12 years in Japan perfecting his craft. This guy was chiseled, and he could hurt you in many different ways. Well, we started touring the Northeast, tournament after tournament after tournament, and we were using the phrase eye of the tiger long before it was fashionable. Meaning you are your opponent, spot him for any weaknesses, move in, do your damage, and get the hell out. We won some, we lost some, but in my opinion, there's never any shame to losing to a superior opponent. As we kept going to these tournaments, we heard from the other schools about some god-awful things about the instructor of our school. I mean, damaging things. One person said, yeah, you got to be careful with that guy around little kids. And we said to him, dude, you got to be careful what you say. A stigma like that can stick with you for life. These comments continued for a long time. One day I was getting ready for school. I was in junior high at the time. And I had the radio on, and I heard his name over the radio. Well, that woke me up right away, and I'm listening. Come to find out that he had been arrested in connection with running a child prostitution ring in the area. I immediately got on the phone to my friend, and he had heard the same thing. Well, we all walked away. We wanted no part of this guy. There was no denying what kind of person he was after hearing something like that. And most of the school walked away. There were still people that were involved with the school coming to his defense. And at that point in time, how can you defend that? There was no defense for it. Kind of find out afterwards that my parents were well aware of what this guy was involved in and never said a word. Sorry thing was they had asked me about it afterwards. And my thing is asking after the fact, what's the point? And they had asked, did anything ever happen while you were there? And I'm like, well, no, but it would have been nice to have a heads up. I'm not going to go into the whys and why they never told me. I was never really very close with my parents, and I'm still not. But I don't want to talk about that anymore. But just the fact that I did not get the heads up beforehand, but had to hear about it afterwards. But when I did hear about it, I walked away. He must have cut a deal because he did no jail time, although he did lose his school. So he was still free to do whatever it was he was doing. I had just seen Stacy Lopez's video. She hadn't done a video in some time, and she had done a call crash. This is the first one she's done in quite some time. I would say at least a year. So the JW's guard was probably somewhat down, although I'm sure they did recognize her and were watching her real close. She had done this video, I'm guessing in July, when the Watchtower study had done their article on the child abuse problem, their watered down version of it. As soon as she spoke up, the elders were right on her, so they knew who she was. They immediately tried to cut her off and get her out of the hall. They threatened to call the police. It's funny, they won't call the police on pedophiles, but they'll call the police on what they deem as an intruder. They didn't want her speaking, obviously. This one elder kept raising his voice to drown her out and escorted her out. As she's speaking, the congregation all starts applauding to drown her voice out. And is this the state of mind that Jehovah's Witnesses are in? I mean, let's face it. We've all been in that point at one time or another where we first heard about the child abuse problem and we're in a state of denial about it. The first time I heard about it wasn't that I denied it, but I didn't realize it was as big as it was. Because let's face it, child abuse goes on in every aspect of life. Let's face it, nobody has a monopoly on it. When I started following the Australian Royal Commission, I realized just how big it was. In my opinion, there was no defending it. Although my last few months in, it was amazing how many Jehovah's Witnesses tried to defend. And they kept telling me, well, this goes on in every organization. And no, you're not understanding. It's not the fact that it goes on in every organization. It's the piss poor way that Watchtower has handled it, which is no different than how the Catholic Church handles it. The funny thing was, at the time, Watchtower was still coming out with articles pointing fingers at other organizations for the same thing that they were protecting. And in this day and age, even though we've all been in that state of denial at one time or another, we all read the writing on the wall and got out. Anybody at this point in time that's still in, you can't tell me that they don't know about it. You can't tell me that they're not hearing about it, because it's more prevalent now than it was then. I mean, it's going on in every country around the world. The media has got it, and they're going to town with it. And no, it is not Satan's system attacking God's organization. And this piss-poor excuse waiting on Jehovah to clean it up. No, sometimes you've got to grab the bull by the balls and clean it up yourselves. They certainly weren't waiting on Jehovah when Stacy entered that hall, were they? Because they were going to call the police right then and there. How many of people were at their cots decided to call the police during the cot crashes? They weren't waiting on Jehovah then, were they? No. Or if your car breaks down, for that matter, why not wait on Jehovah to fix it? No, it doesn't work that way. And the child abuse problem is the very same thing. Jehovah's Witnesses, with all this evidence worldwide, that is no doubt bombarding you, and you still come to the defense of this organization. No, your organization needs to be cleaned up. If you're happy in the organization, that's fine. But don't turn a blind eye to the child abuse problem, because it is bigger than you realize. It's not isolated like you'd like to tell people. No, this is going on in many, many congregations all over the world, not just in one secluded spot. Wake up, JWs. Pull your head out of your ass, because you, at this point in time, coming to the defense of this organization with the problem you have turns my stomach. Anyways, guys, that's all I've got for today. I will talk to you soon. You have a good day.